There's a heart beating time to the rhythm. The car is swaying, her mind is playing a game. Oh, lulled by the rocking, rolling. I wish that you were holding me. I've only memories to wrap around my mind. Pressed close to some stranger, don't I wish it were your breath I could feel. I just imagine that it's you. I close my underneath the streets of the city, captured there in crowded solitude. Thoughts like people are pulling and pushing against her. Underneath the feet of the people, nowhere to hide from the sound of his absence. It's an echoing thunder that rings in her under the earth. Oh, lulled by the rocking, rolling. I wish that you were holding me. I've only memories to wrap around my mind. Pressed close to some stranger, don't I wish it were your breath I could feel. I just imagine that it's you. I close my eyes. Oh, feel the rumble and the roar of the locomotion, like old emotion. Kind remembrance pouring over me underneath the street.
Welcome in, everybody. Yeah, this is from Dream Farm Radio, one of my shows. You can still go to dreamfarmradio.org and hear 8 seasons of incredible music like this that is influenced by jazz, but other things. I call it synergy jazz. It's totally fresh kind of music. If you pop in your information, you'll get free weekly Synergy Jazz radio shows where I host and I perform as well with everyone who's on the show. And no spam, nothing but a show a week.
Memories to wrap around my mind. Pressed close to some stranger, don't I wish it were your breath I could feel. I just imagine that it's you, only you. I close my
That was the tune Underneath the Streets of the City. And I wrote that when I was in college, falling in and out of love as I rode the subway on the way to school, dealing with the things that I was dealing with and perseverating and feeling the vibration of the train kind of pushing and pulling like trains do, and the reality of being underground and close, in a subway. My experience in rush hour, being squished close to a stranger. Hey, Amy, pressed close to a stranger. Don't I wish it were your breath I could feel. The idea of here you are on the subway, squished with all these other people, feeling these big feelings, especially as a young person. Hey, Iceman. And I remember falling in and out of love and looking out of the subway window and, wishing my true love was near instead of some guy sitting next to me with his newspaper during rush hour, and feeling all the feelings that I felt alone for the first time, away at school. And actually, I went to school in Toronto, Canada. So I left the United States, went to a different country, which is Canada's its own thing. It's not just, it's its own culture. And being in a big city, very cosmopolitan, going and studying guitar and having my first dealing with my deepest fears related to my calling and my music. Yeah, and it has that train thing. And when I sat and wrote on guitar, it was in 7/8. And so then writing lyrics to something in 7/8, and then it switches to 4/4 in the bridge. And so there's this musician named Ethan Case, who's incredible. He was a guest on my program 5 or 6 times, played the double neck guitar, and 18 strings. So he'd be tapping and pulling and pushing and snapping on and off with his fingers to create this to turn 2 guitars almost as into two piano keyboards. So he did that Underneath the Streets of the City is on my first album in its original form, and then Ian recorded a version for me for my radio show. But Dream Farm Radio is still some of the best music you can hear anywhere, in an interview format where you can go on and you can hear me talk to musicians about what they created and why, and help us understand and make it accessible, beautiful, original, jazz-influenced music with so many layers and textures and sounds. So good for the brain. And so I really do advise you to go to dreamfarmradio.com and pop in your email there and just get on the list to get the shows. I don't do any other advertising or anything there. Maybe occasionally I give somebody an update, but it's all there, and it's still running. They're still running on NPR stations across the country, these shows. So it's kind of cool. And I got to work with some of the best musicians in the world that came to my barn at Dream Farm to perform their music, because I did what the Lord told me to do. He said, Julie, now's your time. You have to get over what terrifies you and scares you. I was like, I knew what he meant. I was going to have to deal with severe performance anxiety that paralyzed me. And that sent the terror through me just thinking about dealing with it. And as I began to imagine getting well and using what God had given me, which was, we had moved to New Hampshire from Southern California, and we bought a farm that was established in 1743. And the house had been, updated a number of times through the centuries. And the barn, with the original 18th century barn, was completely renovated and turned into a residence. And I looked at that barn when I first got there, and I thought, this is a performance space. So when the Lord told me, it's your time to get healed and whole, he had given me what I needed, which was a venue, a performance space. And he allowed me to become the person who booked it. And I created the audience. I created the thing. I created the vibe. God said, Julie, it's time for you to get healed. And he said, Julie, if you'll give away what you want more than anything else, I'll bless you. And what did I want at that time? I wanted a soft landing place when I brought my gifts to the world. I wanted people who would listen to me, that I could feel were safe, that I could start to sing and play, and they wouldn't judge me. Because I've talked to you about this before. The one thing we all hate is to be bad at what we love the most. If you have a deep passion to do something, and then you think, but what if I suck at the one thing I want to do more than anything? And it's true, God wants us to disconnect our identity from what we do. But even then, it's a pain to think that, say, for example, you want to raise children. Imagine if you were the worst parent in the world and that you could destroy your kids' lives. You want to feel like, I'm equipped. I can become a good mom. I can do what it takes. I can do this job by the grace of God, Jesus in me, and all that good stuff. I'm going to be good at this because he is in me and he's teaching and training me. But when your deepest fear is that what you love the most is going to be where you're going to be exposed and shamed the most, it's just so painful. And so when he said to me, Julie, it's your time to deal with this paralyzing fear, I knew that he wasn't talking about something else. I knew he was talking about my core fear. And then when he showed me and he inspired me to turn our barn into a live venue. And said, you know what? You're not the only one who needs ears. These musicians with the big names and the biographies who look like they can play in their sleep, he was saying to me, don't assume just because people look on the outside as if they're impervious to criticism, that they're such great musicians, they're never afraid and they're never nervous and they never have stage fright. He was inspiring me to look beyond all that. That may be true. They were never scared like I was, some of them. But he was saying, there has value in what you long for. I longed for a safe place to just show up and be little Julie Lavender from Bakersfield, California, with these dreams, to bring them to the world and get over being terrified and get over myself. And I realized what I needed was a loving, caring community, an audience that I could connect with that would honor me where I was, challenge me to the next level, and something that would be of great quality. Like the whole thing needed to be high quality opportunity. And so I began to prepare myself. And so the Lord's like, well, you have a barn. And I can't tell you how much my barn has become the gathering place. I could never afford to rent a concert hall, but my barn we've had, I don't know how many, dozens and dozens of jazz events and concerts and hundreds of radio shows produced there. And it turned into the jazz club I could never have rented, or that might never have booked me. It turned into the church meeting place. It turned into the healing center. It turned into the homeschool room and the conference center. It turned in during COVID. My daughter had I had 2 or 3 concerts called Broadway in the Barn. So we were like, we're not stopping. Come on in, come to our barn. We're here alive and in person. You can come be with us without your mask and have some music during the, oh my gosh, time when we're all supposed to hide at home. And God gave me a resource, but it required faith for me to use it. So when he says to you, he puts his finger on you and says, hello there, it's time for you to stop hiding and deal with your deepest fear. He is not going to do that without having prepared. So it positioned me. So what I decided to do was to start inviting jazz musicians to come and turn my barn into a jazz club once a month. And I decided to invite families to bring their children because we were home educated. So that going to a jazz event at the Dream Farm barn, which at the same time I named the farm Dream Farm because I wanted to believe we could grow dreams where my ground had gotten so hard and fallow in my heart. And so we called it Dream Farm Cafe. So once a month we had a cafe event, and we encouraged all of our neighbors and anyone who was interested and people to bring their kids on a Sunday night. And we were done by like 9 o'clock, and BYOB and bring your own goodies. And the kids would hang out on the rafters looking and listening. And it was a place where the jazz musicians would answer questions so people could understand their music, and there was interaction. And then I always had a featured visual artist, because visual artists nobody pays attention to their work the way they want to. So I gave away eyes to the artists, ears to the musicians, and hearts that were open. That was what I helped give to others so that people could be listened to. And do you know that it got around, and musicians from all over the world who were in Boston started to hear about the gigs at Dream Farm and wanted to be booked at my barn. And we would take up a collection, and we would pay the musicians $150 each for a band of 4 or something like that. Do you know that's more money than they were making in Boston at any of the jazz clubs? They were paid better at my barn. They were listened to. They were more creative and free. They could play anything they wanted. They didn't have to go play Misty all night long in a club that required them to play standards. Plus, they got a free meal. They were exposed to the Spirit of God. And that's what happened at Dream Farm. And my thing was, I'll open for every band that comes, and we'll always do at least one song together. So I learn not to be scared to play with other musicians. Like, I had that in my history by training, but I had gotten so afraid and so reticent and I felt like, I'm not good enough for you people. You're the pros. I'm just me. I'm just scared little me, and I'm probably not good enough. Plus, it was a secret at the time that I struggled with performance anxiety. Exactly, my own Tanglewood. And a word got out, and my gig was the gig people wanted. It really was. And I made myself perform with these musicians because I had to show up and show out as authoritative. We're going to do this tune. Here's the charts. So I had to get my charts right. I had to be ready to rehearse the band and know what I was talking about, speak their language, be able to play up to the standard so that I would feel good playing with them and they would feel good playing with me. And then I built a bio, who came to my barn this month and who I played with. And by the time I had gone through some seasons of Dream Farm Radio, I had a bio of all the people I played with out of Boston that was like tons of people. I performed with this group and this group and this group and this group and this group. Where did I perform? My own barn. But it was true, I did. And they performed and I made contacts and I made friends. And today, several people that came out of that have become deep friends, and they began to open up about their own spirituality and their own political beliefs because, you see, they were shut down and shut out in Boston. But when they came to Dream Farm, they began to talk about their own things. And I made a commitment to pray with every musician band that came through. So I would always say a prayer before I recorded my radio show. And I would thank God, and I would say to them, you guys, if you had any idea where I was without Jesus and why I'm here today, that's why I'm so thankful. So if you don't mind, since this is my barn and my radio show, I'm just going to pray. And I prayed over every band, every musician, just prayed for the Spirit of God to touch them. Try little ways to just communicate the gospel in an artistic sense. Because these were the big mucky mucks. A lot of them were academics that came out of New England Conservatory, Berklee College of Music, studying music, and they were professors. I had professors had put bands together, and they'd come and play at Dream Farm, and so I never wanted them to know how terrified I was. I just wanted to be accepted as in their league. I can be like, I don't have to be the first stringer, but just let me in on the bench. That's just that's how I felt. And I got stronger and stronger and stronger in my gifts. I was able to bring more and more, and I gained and garnered acceptance and respect. And along the way, people heard about this, and we had an invitation list, a really large list of people who were coming to my events. My e-list was really growing. So we would get 60 people in for an event or more sometimes. 60 people. That's more than you can get to a jazz club a lot of times, or to any kind of club for music. Even before this whole thing we've all been through, maybe at the village, people in to just hear the music. Usually you have to get them all drinking and play the standards for them. So it's really a unique thing. And then it got out, and a local radio station in Concord heard about it, and they kept sending people to come record our live events so they could broadcast them. Then they offered me my own radio show, and once a month I went up and I did the recordings of people who had performed at Dream Farm. And you know what? Then I New Hampshire Magazine dubbed me the best jazz radio program in New Hampshire, AM. And all of a sudden, I'm in New Hampshire Magazine. It was called Best Dream Come True. I was Best Dream Come True in New Hampshire Magazine as an AM jazz program. And that's when my husband looked at me and said, Julie, you need to syndicate this. So we said, for NPR, join us at Dream Farm Radio. Drive down the country road of your imagination right into our barn here at Dream Farm, where you will hear music that will stretch your capacity to think and believe and understand what music can sound like when jazz is mixed with classical and Latin and other world flavors. So join us this week at Dream Farm Radio. And hey, you just might find out that you want to make one of your dreams come true. That was my little kind of tagline, not exactly like that. And you'll hear it if you sign up for Dream Farm Radio shows. You'll hear me explain and talk about it. And then, 5-6 years ago, the Lord said to me, Julie, you're hiding. Oh, what do you mean? I got a radio show. I got 5 albums out. I'm on NPR, blah, 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 blah. I do these things. And I knew what he meant. I was going to have to start coming on and doing what I'm doing now, which is to show up and say, this is where I'm at. I'm terrified. I'm scared, or I was. I was ruled by fear. And it was hard. It was humbling because all I wanted to do was be known as a great musician. Oh, she's great. Wow, she's great. Wow. I mean, it's funny how if another musician says about you, she's great, he's great, it's kind of like this, validated my parking ticket. I just wanted to be great. I just want to be accepted. I just want to be a pro. I just want to be professional. I want to be in the in crowd. And the Lord said, you have to start telling your story. And I started out by putting Periscope on and just filming some of our live events, right? And then playing live where I had less control over what, because with the radio show, we performed live in the barn, but we could do some edits and we could, get the lighting and everything and the sound the way we wanted it. And then the next thing you know, I'm starting to tell you guys what's really going on with me and what's the history of Dream Farm and how Dream Farm is anything but some walk in the park for somebody who's got it all together. Dream Farm was designed to get me from a place where I was terrified to play for one person in a room, and I couldn't even dream. It was a far and distant dream to even believe I could perform regularly with the top, much less with the top musicians in the world, much less be respected and regarded, much less have my own venue, much less have my own radio shows, much less do my own concerts, much less connect with then Grammy nominated musicians on my last album, you guys. My last album was arranged by a man who's is 3-time Grammy nominated, Kim Richmond. This is the Rising album. And on that album is a cellist who has 4 Grammy Awards. And they played all the music that I wrote, that I created, that I recorded, and I flew to LA, and the top musicians in LA, I mean top level musicians, are on my album. And my arranger got so overwhelmed in the recording session that I had to take over and direct them about what I wanted them to do. And they said to me, we've never heard music like this. Who are you? They're in LA, they work with the top everybody. But you know what? LA is a business, and I was bringing art. And I was bringing anointed art based on ancient Jewish prayer and the power and gifts of God and classical guitar, jazz structures. And they said to me, who are you? We've never heard music like this. And I said to them, I am just little Julie Lavender from Bakersfield, California. No, the guy said, no, who are you? And I said, no, really, I am. But I love Yeshua. This is a Jewish guy, but I love Yeshua. And what you're hearing is his music playing through me. And one guy who's played on every album known to man, worked with Barbra Streisand, you name it, Willie Nelson, anything. His bio was at the time he gave it to me, it was 15 or 20 pages, single-spaced, of every movie and album and everybody he'd worked on. Who are you? What is this? And I said, I'm here to give you your prayers back. He was Jewish. And I said, these prayers are about the Messiah. I'm here to give them back to you. There was a day when I sat in my living room and the Lord said, Julie, it's your time. And the very word of the Lord terrified me to my bones. All the old neural patterns screamed out, no, not us, don't touch us. We're used to her being terrified and avoiding. We're used to her hiding behind being the homeschool mom and the ministry mom and the whatever. That's easy. Don't change. That's the wiring my brain was screaming at me. And of course, the demons. And I took a deep breath. I felt the fear go all the way through me. I took a deep breath. And I said, Lord, you and I have been through, I was like, wow, All I could say was, I was trembling, my voice was trembling, and I said, I'll go every door, I'll walk through every door you open for me, one at a time, trusting each step, as long as you don't let go of my hand, essentially, don't leave me. Would he? No, but I just had to say it. And that's where we started. Realizing I had a barn, inviting one neighbor over to come and sit with me while I played a song, and outed myself as terrified, and told her what I had to do. And it turned out she was itching to be a photographer, and she went and took a photography class, and my daughter and I wound up being the first people she ever took portraits of, so she could overcome her fear. And by the way, the portrait she took of my daughter is the first portrait of her after she had her hair cut, going into the first grade, as a new person, within weeks after she had disclosed to us that she had been a victim of abuse by a neighbor. So the first portrait of my daughter, after she had told the truth and we had begun our healing process with her beautiful new little blunt haircut saying, "I'm a first grader now," was taken by the woman that I felt inspired to come and sit in my barn when I was terrified, to listen to me play when I couldn't hardly play for one person. Then she turned around and said, "I'm going to go after my dream too." And she marked the moment in my daughter's life when we began the road back from the abuse. What do you have in your hand? What are the resources God has already given you to start dealing with the thing you're running from? I'm feeling it now because I have things I don't want to deal with this weekend, a big battle in town. And in my old wiring, I want to go, "No, do anything but that. Don't go to that meeting. Don't." And my answer is, "Well, Lord, look how far we've come. You've never leaved me, nor forsaken me. Look how far. And there's nothing that can stand against me because he's in me," right? What do you have in your hand? Because he's saying to you, it's time. That thing you've been running from your whole life, it is time for you to get free. And the beauty is, you'll know the right steps, the right next things to do, the right next tweaks and challenges, the scary thing you need to do next. You'll know. He'll be right there with you, and you have more resources and abundance for that path than you can imagine. The resource and abundance shuts down to a dribble when you're in avoidance and you're hiding. And so as day 4 of our challenge, go back and listen to Curry Blake's proclamations. Nothing can stand against me. Nothing can stand against me. I'm not used to losing. I just don't lose. I just don't lose. Because it ain't over till the Messiah sings. So what if I have an outcome this weekend that's difficult? What if a vote doesn't go my way or whatever? Is that the end? You tell me. Right. Good, Connie. So I'm in the midst of things that physically scare me now, but nothing can stand against me, and there's nothing that can happen to me today, tomorrow, or Saturday throughout this engagement I'm in that I won't overcome, that I won't stand and squish scorpions and serpents and the whole thing. And so I'm just telling you that the challenge to listen to Curry Blake's proclamations, go to YouTube, look up Curry Blake. I'll type it in. Oops, where are we? Curry Blake proclamations. 8 minutes and 13 seconds. It has music and also has the text written out. That's who I am. That's who Jesus is in me. And forget me and get more and more aware of him in me, flowing. right? I'm glad you're doing the challenge. So, tomorrow I got to tell you, pay attention because you're going to have to do the challenge on your own tomorrow, okay? Because the battle that I'm in, that I plan to win, one way or another, the battle I'm going to win this weekend, okay, involves us flying home just to do the battle and then come back. So tomorrow, instead of being here, I'm going to be on an airplane, flying home with my protest mask on that says masks are mind control. Flying home to be engaged personally in battle on Saturday. Pray for us in our town, for the will of God, the kingdom of God. And then I will be coming back here on Monday. So you know what? That leaves you Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and maybe Monday, depending on if I can get a scope in on Monday, to be pounding down Curry Blake's proclamations, okay? So by the time I see you either Monday or Tuesday, you're going to be so transformed you won't even know what to do with yourself. So go do something that scares you. Thank you, Connie. Please do. It's huge. This has national implications, what we're doing in our town. All right, so go do something that scares you and fill your brain with the new wiring. Use Curry Blake's proclamations, and I will be back to check on you